another Friday, and I just can't get away from the internet gremlins.
I
You and
know.
I tried hooking up last Friday, and I used my um, Starlink satellite link, and we were being interrupted by one tree, and it was blowing the signals, kicking us off like every 4 minutes. And today I'm at my brother's house, and we've got internet. And 20 minutes ago I had no internet; it was not working. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is the home of Microsoft. How can you have bad internet up here?
Yeah. I mean, you're what, a couple miles away from Microsoft?
Well, more than a couple miles,
Go
but a
figure.
couple hours anyway. So, but alas, we are here now, folks. If I drop off, then we're gonna end the show. I don't expect to, because normally the connection is pretty good. But we want to talk about um, what the heck is going on with mortgage rates. They had a good day, then they had a bad day. The economic news came out, and it was better than expected. So I want to talk about that and show some things of what's going on. And I think probably the first illustration I want to show here is my handy dandy little 7-day moving average, which takes a very simple, simplistic view of our market. And it shows what's been going on the past 7 days. And I'm sharing it. They're good. Now, see that red line there on the left? That's last year.
Yep.
Notice how it dipped, because that was July. Well, we're seeing that same dip now. The only difference between last year and this year is the gap between number of homes under contract, which is the bottom line, and the gap between new listings is considerably higher than it was last summer. So it was so low down here that you had a lot of bidding wars, and business was pretty active. Our volume is considerably lower. It's way down here to like 2,700. And our new listings are coming on at a lower rate, but kind of similar to the same rate as last summer. So the heat always has its effect in Arizona in July, and we're feeling some of that right now. And we're seeing it though in the CMI index. And Chandler is still leading the charge here with a CMI of 325.9. Do you know, Pat, there's only 143 single family homes for sale today?
Where?
In Chandler. And that's what's driving this high CMI number 325, and they went up by 4%. Good afternoon, Keenan. And Stephanie here says, with the GDP up 25%, unemployment at near full employment, inflation down, you'd expect enough rally bond market yield to reduce interest rates. Obviously not. Yeah, it's complicated, and I hope we can dive into that, Pat. So what's interesting here is when we look, and I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but the commentary on Cromford said mortgage rates jumped back up over 7% today, and both sellers and buyers in the resale market find this depressing. Our CMI represents the data in the MLS, which is targeted mostly for resale listings. The new home market is quite different, because home builders do not suffer a lack of motivation for new homes. Volumes are quite good despite high interest rates, because they're buying the rates down, right?
Yep.
Prices are also on the rise. Buyers of new homes appear to retain a strong will to buy, and home builders' finances look stronger than they have been for many years. And he lists down here their stock prices are almost back up to their record highs for Lennar, D.R. Horton, Meritage, KB, and Pulte. They're all just about knocking on their highs as far as their stock price, which were pretty beaten down. Now, if I jump over here and look at active listings again, we're flat. Well, we were flat again last summer. But what's interesting to me, Pat, is, you know how we always see an uptick in listings on Fridays?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any of that. In fact, we went down today by about 200, which is not much, but historically we go up before the weekend. But
do you want
do
to list do you really want to list your home when it's 115 degrees out?
I tell you what, I feel for anybody that's trying to do an open house right now, because by the time you put your open house signs up, you go in, you get the house ready, you need a shower. And it's so,
I know.
I mean, I did one once, and I got in and the thermostat was not working. I walked in the house, it was 95 degrees. I stayed there an hour and I said, I'm done. Nobody's going to show up. This is average list price per square foot, active listings. They're flatlining right now. They've gone down a little bit since week 22, but they're kind of flatlining. And then I look here and I see percent closing is dropping slightly, but not much. We were 42%. Now we're 41.4. These are percent of people giving concessions for at closing. So that's kind of a brief snapshot of what's going on in the Arizona market. If you have any questions, everybody hit us up here in the chat and we'll answer them. But here's what I wanted to tee up to you, Pat, and this is from Mortgage News Daily, and it said the Fed hikes its policy rate yesterday, and now today, which was yesterday, it said mortgage rates jumped quite a bit higher. While there are already headlines drawing a connection between these two events, they're actually unrelated. The mortgage rate hikes that we're experiencing today and the Fed hike, no correlation. As we discussed yesterday, the Fed hike was already baked into yesterday's rate levels. Mortgage rates actually moved lower in the afternoon, and they've done it every time we've looked at it. Whenever the Fed comes out and goes, going up a quarter, 0.25, rates have gone down, right? Today was a new day, and it brought another chance for rates to exhibit their data-dependent nature. Fed Chair Powell reminding the market that rates would be dependent on data, but that dependency doesn't carry a direct connotation in and of itself. In other words, it didn't mean rates were destined to rise today. They just as easily could have fallen. But the data wasn't weaker. What happened was GDP came in 25% higher than what was projected, and unemployment didn't rise. And that's the one thing that Powell has really got his eye on, is raising unemployment, slowing the economy down. And yet we have a stimulus package out there of $1.3 trillion called the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yeah.
That is putting a lot of people to work, and that money's just now hitting the economy. So I'm a little concerned that inflation is not going to take this downward trend. I think it may end up ticking back up in about 3-4 months. What say you, Pat?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Kind of word on that is that this money is still out there, but I mean, it's just I tell you, I mean, in 23 years, I've never seen such turmoil and trying to figure out which way this market's going to go. I mean, it's just once look at my chart, if you pull the chart up, I mean, we're still stuck in this range. I mean, today, we had the bonds yesterday were hit by 59 basis points. It was a negative day yesterday, but we came back. We had a good day today. It was up 36 basis points to 5.5% coupon. The Treasury, we've been seeing that high around 4%. Today, it was down 5 basis points to 395. But you got inflation. I don't know. The inflation train just seems to be slowing down a bit. But like we've talked about the last several months, I mean, you got this fiscal policy on one end, you got monetary policy on the other, and they're just not. What's frustrating, I think it's frustrating the markets. There's no, they're not working together. Which
no, and the Fed chairman is not applying a lot of pressure. I mean, the checks have already been cut, so there's not a lot he can do except stand up and say, "Well, we're going to watch and we're going to be data dependent." In other words, we're in this little mortgage and real estate industry, and we're just looking at that, right?
Yeah.
Sales are down, new listings are down. He did say, and it was interesting yesterday, or was it yesterday? When was that? That was Wednesday, right? When he said, and I think he might have made a mistake, but it's confusing everybody in the real estate world. He said what we've been saying for a long time, and he said, the guy asked him a question about, what do you think is going to happen with housing? And he said, well, we didn't expect that when rates were lowered that people would stay in their homes. They're stuck in their homes now. They don't want to give up a 3% loan for a 7% loan. And therefore, new listings are at record lows. And he said, and it looks like it's going to be that way for a while. As soon as he finished that, then he said, but we are starting to see more new listings coming on. And we're like, where?
Well,
And
what's kind of weird. I mean, that just was. I mean, you look at Paul Volcker, Greenspan. Look at all these other, these Fed chairmen. Did they ever talk about house listings, home listings? They never talked about that stuff.
no, Greenspan talked kind of over everybody's head to where you had to really try to analyze what it was he really meant. But I found it was, unless, and I heard one real estate guy who's got a podcast out, and he said he may have meant that we're seeing more listings coming on for multifamily housing because there's a ton of new builds coming
Yeah,
out, and those are going to start hitting the market, and people are going to start seeing rent prices decrease because of that. So he may have shifted over and meant to be talking specifically about that we're starting to see more new listings coming on board. So it could
yeah,
be new listings in rental, single family rentals, um,
yeah,
not resale homes for sale. Because right now that's not happening. And I also saw a video by a YouTuber last week that was being interviewed by a guy, and he said that we're going to see a wave of new listings, and with sales being as low as they are, prices are going to crater. And I literally asked the question, where are the new listings coming from? Because that
yeah,
should have been what this reporter should have asked Chairman Powell as a follow up. But I don't think there's anybody in that room that understands real estate or housing. They just asked the cookie cutter question. And when he said there's more new listings coming on, there should have been a follow up. Well, where are those coming from? Because you just said, you know, so um, this one guy that said, these new listings are all going to show up. I said, from where?
yeah,
And they never dive in and give any details. Because I also think that if new listings do show up, they're going to get purchased.
yeah. I just,
There's so much pent up demand.
and I think the longer that we go, on this, this pent up demand, there are just a lot of people out there that are just looking to buy, and they're looking for some, you know, entry point. And this market hasn't given anybody an entry point with high rates and the home values being where they're at. And it's just been a strange market. Just like you said, people are. I've been there's people inquiring and waiting. I've had a few people say I'm going to wait till rates go down. And once again, I'm just my my gut instinct being a mortgage person the last 23 years. I've just never seen a market like this where we're kind of just stuck. I mean, I remember back in the 90s, kind of go back in the days of people would buy a house in early 90s, mid 90s for 175,000, hold it for 4, 5, 6 years, sell it for 250,000 or have some equity build up, and they go up into maybe a 350, 375,000 dollar home. Now you've got the starting home. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but can you really find anything that's worth living in that's under 350?
No, I can't find it. I can't find it at all. And that's the rub. It's and if you do find it, you're probably not going to like the neighborhood.
Yeah. It's
But
just
now Robert Schiller came. Well, there's a couple numbers that really surprised me. Not Robert Schiller's. He said that there's not going to be a crash. He's the guy that predicted, well, was very accurate in predicting the crash way back in 2006.
yeah,
And, and even um, the Cromford market made a statement. So he's saying real estate's going to be flat for a long time.
yeah,
That's basically in a nutshell what he said. Now, um, one of the things that was said here, going back to Cromford report, he said, the builders are loving the fact that supply is so weak in the competing resale sector. This is the opposite of where they were in 2009 when they had to cope with a flood of bank owned and short sale homes at rock bottom prices that made new homes look very expensive, especially as resale homes were changing hands for less than their rebuild cost. So we're not seeing that now.
yeah,
And the Mortgage Bankers Association is still sticking to their guns with a forecast of rates at 5.9% at the end of the year.
I could
Um,
I can see that. I mean, looking back, I'm gonna go. Can we jump over? I mean, let's go jump into a pricing I'm just going to pull up pricing where we're at right now. Just, I mean, you can blow this up, right?
Not when I'm live. No.
Oh, geez. Okay.
If
So people are just
you can click on your tab and hit Control Plus, it'll increase it. Look
okay.
at this,
Well,
folks. Not only do you get real estate news, but I can teach you how to zoom in on your browser as well. So yeah,
control what? Yeah.
Control
Oh,
Plus.
that's right. Yeah,
So,
that's right.
and
Yeah, I should know that
now
already.
see how this works. Now there was no charge for that. Um, so I got, but I do want my dollar
Well,
back
I'm
because
just I'm pulling up. Yeah, I'll give you $1. I'll send it to you in a roll of pennies. But no, I mean, just price it out a $450,000 purchase, 5% down. I mean, I'm just going down to this one lender. Like I said, I've got this loan pricing system that I can look at different lenders where we're at. There's different lenders that got different service levels that I like to look at. This there's a bank here, Next Bank. Um, they're out of Texas, but I'm looking at their pricing right now, 7.25. You're looking at 7/8 as a cost of $2,200. But I'm looking at where they're at pricing wise to get down to say 6.5. You're looking at almost a 2 point difference. So it's going to take some time to get down to the mid six range. You know, so I mean, there's going to be some work to get down into the mid six range. I mean, we might eventually get there. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of work. I mean, the high fives right now, 6% is 3.42% discount. So you're looking at bonds that would have to have a rally. Just I'm being very general, but you're gonna have to see a good rally in bonds that get down to the 6% range.
well,
So I mean,
let's talk about that for a second, can we, Pat? Because like Lewis here says, rates should stay above 7%. Well, there isn't one entity that controls mortgage rates. In other words,
yeah,
the central bank doesn't control mortgage rates, right? They
no,
raise the overnight rate, but they don't massage or move mortgage rates. What does move it is how bonds are bought and sold based on inflation and people's return
expectations.
on their investment, correct?
Yeah, yeah, there and inflation. What they expect to return. It's just we could look into all the details of this or that as far as the economy, but it's all based on expected rate of return. Yeah, correct. And inflation's what's my piece of paper going to be worth in the future?
Yeah, and so they don't really, people buying and selling bonds that affect mortgage rates don't give a rip about housing. They really they're not saying, well, let's move this so
Yeah,
that we can get the housing market go. They don't, that's not their job. But that's what affects mortgage rates. And so Jorge says, do you think rates elevated about 7% for an extended period of time will put downward pressure on prices? It hasn't done that yet. It has put some downward pressure on volume. But remember, it's the gap between the number of new contracts and the number of new listings that drives prices. And right now we're selling them at about an 82% rate. And if you look at our prices, they're going up,
yeah.
price per square foot. But am I explaining that properly though, Pat? I mean, they don't, traders of mortgage-backed securities don't make the buying and selling decision based off what they think's happening to housing.
No, 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 not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I mean, and that's the thing is, like going back to what you said about Schiller, like you and I have been talking about this. I'm just seeing this market where I don't see any type of impetus that's going to push, um, this market. I think we're just kind of stuck in this range. I mean, it's almost. I saw something the other day that was it. It was. I think it was Jeb and Josh on their YouTube. Are we kind of in a balanced market? It almost seems kind of balanced because it's not moving up or down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and they both felt we would stay. And if people haven't seen Jeb Smith in Southern California, look him up
Yeah, they
on
do a good
YouTube.
job.
He does an excellent job. And so he talks mostly about California, but he brings on some great guests. And so I recommend taking a look because he goes into some real detail. But he feels like you and I do that, well, we're going to be here. Oh, I mean, I don't see anything changing until the end of next year. Now, the Chairman Powell said that he said he doesn't want to come out and say, well, here's when we're going to lower our rate, because he
Yeah.
said that would just unleash a whole list of problems. But there are people that are expecting that they'll come down at the end of next year, not the end of this year. So he isn't kidding when he said we want to stay here for a extended period of time. But I think, in our little real estate world, I'm okay if we stay here, because I would like to see some type of jump towards affordability. And
Yeah.
Barry missed his call this month. He said that he did not expect rates to go up, that the inflation numbers are going to be so good that they would look foolish going up by 0.25. But there were other numbers that they're looking at that, and Barry said this, there could be some other surprises in there, but I don't see how they can do it. Well, they did it.
Yeah.
And so, but the unemployment numbers, one of the things that Chairman Powell did say was the restrictive moves that they've made are now starting to have an effect.
Mm-hmm.
Where at the last meeting, he said the restrictive moves that we've made have not had an effect yet.
He's become
So
less
now,
hawkish. He's definitely become less hawkish.
yeah.
I mean, their Fed statement was pretty much a cut and paste from their last one for the most part, but he has become less hawkish, and that, it seems like he's kind of setting up for maybe not to do anything on September 20th. Maybe it is. I mean, I just look at too. I mean, everything always happens when you least expect it. I mean, we didn't see this. It was a surprise. 18 months ago when they started raising rates, everybody was like, "Oh my god," it was a shock. And back when rates got to 2.75%, 3%, we didn't expect that. I think as we're gonna go back, we're gonna be muddling along here, and I think something will happen where we're like, "Oh my god, look." As I talk about how everything, I'm starting to see things in 6 to 12 month increments now. And it just seems like we've been in this period now. We might be in this moving along, just steady along for another 6, 12 months.
Yeah. And there isn't any magic bullet that says, well, let's just make affordability better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
That's what I think people are, just to jump in, I think that's what you got. A lot of these first time home buyers are, I mean, I feel their pain. I mean, it just really is frustrating. I feel their pain big time, because, you got this, demographic they're producing kids, they got dogs, they want to move into a home. And, you're looking at, trying to get money together for down payment, and, $450,000 house, 7%, you're looking at house payments with PITI in the low 3,000, 3,000, 3,200 range, which is tough.
and they're not having kids, they're producing kids.
Oh yeah. Producing, whatever. Yeah. Thanks for the correction.
It's a factory.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm kind of interested
thinking,
too.
let's produce a baby.
Let's produce a baby. It's been a very interesting time frame. I've been scratching my head here. It's just, a lot of time, I think there's some economic headwinds ahead. Inflation's still digging, into personal savings. I mean, you've got the student loans, that are resuming. That's from an economy standpoint, because there's a lot of people that have got student loans that it's going to be tough for them to buy a house if they got a, $500, $600, $700, student loan payment and a car payment. And, I was talking to a realtor yesterday at this in my neighborhood, and she's like, she's seeing people that are available. They've got the money. They're going ahead and buying a home. And, there's always that segment too, that's waiting for the crash, for rates to go down. And unfortunately, I just don't really see that happening.
Well, and speaking of an economic slowdown that's not happening, I'm up in the Olympic National Park now still, and I went to go to the Hoh Rainforest Visitor Center, and which is an incredible place, and pulled up there, 6 mile line, 2 hour wait just to get to the parking lot. So needless to say, I killed that idea. Just crowded. Every RV park I've been to and every resort has been packed. There's one of the main attractions from where I at is a mountain area called Hurricane Ridge. And it's my brother told me yesterday, if you want to go, you'll have to go early in the morning because there's only 350 parking spots and it's full by 10 o'clock in the morning. I went over
What are
to,
they there to see? What's there to see?
it looks like the Swiss Alps. It's hard to
Oh,
describe. It's only a 45-minute drive up the hill and it's spectacular. That's where I
wow.
learned to ski. I went to Victoria, British Columbia. The boat was packed. There was so every place I go to has a help wanted sign. I went to Safeway. The fish section said, I'm still trying to find some fresh halibut up here. I can't get any. The fish market said that they were closed due to a staff shortage. And, so it's at past midnight over there in Italy. Hello, Betta.
Ah,
It's
ciao. Ciao.
good to be back at 3 o'clock and see our regular gang. We've kind of done 9:30 a few times while I was traveling here, and so we thought we'd pop back in it. We only went to 3 now because Pat was golfing. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it would have been 9:30, and I'd be golfing. But
Can I tell you a quick Italian story? I took Italian, and I'll tell you a quick 20 minute story. 20 second,
20 minutes, yeah,
20 minute. Yeah, you know me, and us
there we
Irish like
go.
to talk. Here we go again. But took Italian for my senior year of college in Wisconsin. I'm sitting in the back wall, crack up my book, and the first word I see is I try to pronounce it. I go, "Siao," and this guy next to me he looks at me and goes, "Man, it's going to be a long semester." I didn't even know how to pronounce "chow."
I went walking down a trail at Dungeness at the Wildlife Reserve this weekend, and seemed like everybody passing us was speaking French.
Oh, really?
And so, I mean, and that was crowded.
Wow.
And so it just, and my point is, I don't see the economy slowing down right now. I just don't. I'm not seeing any indications. People still have plenty of money. Yes, they are depleting their savings. Yes, they are spending more on their credit cards. Those are going up, but it hasn't hit that point yet where everybody goes, ouch. Maybe they're viewing this as I can go on vacation this summer. I won't be able to afford it next summer, but they're out and about. And if you just drive down the roads up here to places where people, go for the weekends, there's a line. You're
Yeah.
packed. And
I'm I'm going to
that
throw
is
this out.
laughing at your Seattle.
See how, yeah.
Seattle.
That's a Wisconsin cheesehead trying to talk Italian.
Yeah.
But I had a kind of a just kind of speaking off topic here a little bit. I had kind of a revelation the other night. I was trying to think of what I was thinking about the other night. I was there for the crash in '07, and if you stop and think about it, I just kind of throw this out there for just food for thought. And this is just Pat McMortgage, talking. That's my buddy calls me McMortgage. But we had the crash in '07, '08, right? And I remember getting a call from a realtor in '07 where Lawrence Yoon, I was there when that day it happened. I mean, they were shutting down investor pipelines left and right, and you could see there was panic going on. Something was going on, and about 6, 7 months later, we had that dynamic happen, right? And I get a call from a buddy of mine, realtor, and he said, "Oh yeah, Lawrence Yoon said we're going to be in and out of this thing in about another 6 to 8 months." And if I said this to him, and he still holds me to this, I said, Jonas, I said, we're going to be in this thing for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
And he said, you're full of crap, Pat. And I just said, you watch. I didn't read anything. I just said something tells me we're going to be in this thing for the next 3 to 5 years. And that was middle of '07. And I give myself kudos. It was 2011, 12 before we started crawling out of that. Really, I mean, we hit the bottom in about the middle of 2011. But it kind of dawned on me the other night. I'm like, we went through COVID, and we're trying to figure this out. This is going to probably be, COVID was in 2020. Hell, I don't even 2020 or 21, 20?
19.
Huh? No, not 2020. Was it 2020? March of
Well, they
2020.
call it COVID-19.
No, that was just that was. I mean, it wasn't.
That was
That
the
wasn't
name.
the year.
That's when it came out. Yeah. So
Yeah, that was. But March of 2020. So, I mean, I'm just throwing that out through food for thought. Is that maybe we're just in this dynamic, this help wanted, interest rates, the inflation, The millions that they're spending. This is going to be a 3 to 5 year phenomena that we have to kind of work ourselves out of it. Does that make?
Well, and you know what? And Chairman Powell said this week, he said, we haven't wrung out the excesses from the pandemic yet.
Yeah, yeah,
And the excesses, what he means is the money that he spent, the
yeah.
money that the Fed spent, and all the programs. And he said, he says, there's a lot of equity out there. There's a ton of equity. People are not going to give up their homes. And I just do not, I'm not in the crash camp at all. I don't see any math that makes that work. I see far more math and data that says we can be stuck like this. We
Yeah.
could easily be talking about this a year and a half from now.
Well, that's
So
it.
the
So
money
that's what I'm
that
kind of saying. That's what I'm kind of saying is that, we're all looking for this one dynamic to change the real estate market. And, I got to thinking about this. I go, maybe this is just a phenomena that obviously everything that was all this stuff that we're talking about, you know, um, people rushing in to buy homes. We had low interest rates. It's going to take maybe 3 to 5 years to work out all this crap that COVID created.
Yeah, we've never been here before. We've never had this much money get injected into the system that has to be pulled back. Never. So there
Yeah.
isn't any historical context to it. And people are waiting, saying, well, we need them to pull back interest rates so that we can afford a mortgage. Well, interest rates are not just based on somebody saying, well, we need to make mortgages more affordable for people. So let's do that. So there's a lot of things in play. The strength of the dollar, competing with other countries. Did Japan? What they do? They lower they
They
lower or
raised
raise their rate?
their target. Yeah, they did. I had it written down, but they kind of messed around with the rates. I kind of had some influence on the rates yesterday. I just don't, I just don't see much changing in this, into the interest rate channel that we're kind of stuck in. The high sixes, mid sixes, sevens, until we get, I mean, the sentiment of the Fed kind of shifting too. But
Well, I'll predict one thing: you're going to see some more creativity if rates remain here. You will see more products coming up, more ways to try and get people into homes. You'll see sellers offering more incentives if we're in this for a protracted period of time. So it
yeah,
doesn't mean that you have to wait a year and a half to get in. There could be some products that show up and they may be short lived, but might be attractive, be worth taking a look at. So you got to keep your ear to the ground and see what's going on in the market. So I think that's
yeah.
what we're gonna be watching for, because
I
I've
hope they don't
seen
get too
that
creative,
before.
huh?
I said, well, they've seen that before, but I agree with you. I don't want to be too creative.
Yeah, I don't want to see them, getting creative with, um, lowering the lending standards. I mean, that's what's helped us not crash. The lending guidelines that they developed in 08, 09, 10. As much as I, bucked up against Dodd Frank. I mean, they did. A lot of people get kind of frustrated, like, why they need this document or that document. They just kept this lending standards and guidelines strong, which has produced a strong housing market. But I hope they don't get too creative. But I'm just starting to. I just feel like the last several months, you and I talked about this. Not we're kind of repeating ourselves, maybe, but it just seems like there's a big swath of people out there waiting for rates to drop, and they're going to be, if they wait for those rate drops, there's going to be 250,000 other people that are going to be out there looking for it. And then that's where you get the bidding wars. You got homes going 15, 20, 25,000 over, you know, over their bid price. So do you pay now? Do you pay a little bit more with the anticipation that rates are going to come down next 8, 12, 16 months? That's kind of, if I really think that people are in a position, like I said, I'm not, I think people have to buy when they're in a position to buy. I'm kind of getting to that point now, like throwing my hands up and like, hey, if you can afford it, I know it's tough, but and I've probably said this a couple of times, but I'm starting to see that at camp, it's like I'm just not seeing anything that's going to push this market if you're looking really to seriously buy.
Well, have you heard of this? Jorge saying, have you heard about the proposed Down Payment Toward Equity Act? $25,000 grant for first generation buyers. Probably not good for supply demand. I have not heard of that act.
No, I haven't. The thing of it is with these grants, I mean, like I looked at these down payment assistance programs, but it comes down to affordability. I mean, You're still looking at, a $350,000, $400,000 home, what their payment's going to be, and you give them, down payment assistance.
Yeah, I don't
But
think that solves the problem.
no, I don't. I start, for maybe the right people, the down payment assistance. I haven't been a big fan of it. I mean, for the right person, yes. I've been a bigger fan of, if people can get a 2-1 buy down, I think that makes a lot of sense. If you can get, like I said, if this market's stalled, I think you get the seller that wants to sell, they will give a 2-1 buy down, which gives you relief for, 1 to 2 years, which I think is a nice window to work in. But once again, it comes down to affordability. And like you said, if you could drop your rate from say 7.25 down to 5.25, you're dropping your payment like $600 a month.
I'll have to take a look, Jorge, and go back and look at Michael's
Yeah, I will take
video.
a look at that.
There were proposals going out in 2021 about down payment assistance for first time home buyers and different other programs for first time home buyers. And I was just shouting from the rooftop going, that's not the problem. We already have a supply problem now. If you start incentivizing buyers, you're going to make the supply problem worse. But these government officials just can't see past, they can't read the tea leaves, stay out of it. Just please, just put your pencils away and just let the market ride through this, because these first-time homebuyer programs are going to make more people purchase a product that's not available.
Yeah. I mean, we don't, like you said, we don't have a demand problem. We have a supply problem. It's not demand because we've got, I know, I know of loan officers, I talk to loan officers, I talk to clients, I talk to lenders, and, it's really just an affordability problem. It's not, it's supply and demand. So, creating more grants to help people buy, they maybe need to start looking at making, building more affordable homes.
Well, take a look at our annual number of new listings. Look at how low that is compared to the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And let's go back to 2006 and rub that number in there and see what happens. Way up here, 171,000 new listings. Now, people were buying like a drunken sailor back then. They were not paying attention to how many new listings were coming on board. It was right in front of you. It was right here. A yearly total of 100.
We didn't have the MIC report then.
We didn't have the MIC report. 171,000 listings. Oh, another thing I ran into this weekend. I was out at the Pacific Ocean and ran into a couple. They're from this state, and she said that their kids are looking. They might want to buy something down in Arizona, but she says, but I told them they're out of water. Don't go there. They don't have any water left. They've stopped all building. Didn't you read that? And I looked at her and smiled. I go, yeah, we're 4% short of our 100-year projection. I said, you must have read the New York Times article. Oh, no. I had a friend tell me Arizona's out of water. I said, okay. All right. I'm not going to argue with you.
No, some people, well, Josh and Jeb, they put a great chart up the other day. 90% of the mortgages that are written are at, I think it was 6% or less.
90%.
90%. So you got a ton of people that are in 2 3/4, 3, 3.5, 4. They're just, until we see rates, start to float down. I think then we need velocity, and we don't have the velocity of homes.
Well, Betty just had a comment. She sent me an email here today too. It said, wait till property taxes increase. Isn't there a conference in Arizona discussing this? Would appreciate your thoughts. They're having a conference to discuss it, but I don't think the appetite is there to raise our property taxes. It would be political suicide. Yeah. If they were to change the math on how Arizona does it at this juncture, would be a very, very poor move. Good move if you want to be booted out of office, but I don't see that happening because we have a cap. And, if we do something silly like that, I'll certainly write their names down. If rates stay in the 5 to 7 range, how long do prices need to stay flat before affordability returns? In other words, how long before wages catch up? Todd, that's what everybody's waiting for. That's the question everybody's asking. I wish I had the answer. If we stay above 7% and we stay flat and it's still the gap and nobody lists their homes, you're not going to see pricing come down. You may have to wait for wages to gradually catch up, but right now wages are behind inflation. So our wages have not kept up with inflation, let alone home prices.
Yeah.
So it still all boils down to inflation. Inflation is going to have to come down and stay down, and the rest is going to have to work itself out. But if we have 7% mortgages and our new listings still stay low, there's no catalyst for pricing to come down. That's why I track it on the 7-day average, and I do it as a percentage of homes that went under contract. When we hit 65%, we saw downward pricing pressure, and we're at 82% today.
Yeah.
So that's not downward pricing. It's a simple calculation, but it's held up over the course of the past couple of years. So Todd, I don't know. Um, you know, even Case Shiller doesn't know, Zillow doesn't know. Everybody's trying to figure this out. And it real estate. The one thing that you do know about real estate over the long term, it's a good move.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
because you're paying a monthly payment anyway if you're
Yep.
renting. So 10 years from now, if you're renting 10 years from now, you have no equity. If you bought and 10 years from now, you had a downturn and it worked its way up, at least you paid down the note, you'll have some equity. You may have a lot of equity. You may have a little bit of equity, but you'll have hundreds of percentage more than you would if you were renting. So if you can get into something over the long term, it pays. I mean, I've got many friends now that don't have a mortgage. Their house is paid off. And they've rode many up and downs. 2008,
Yeah.
the 90s. But they just stayed put, just kept making the payment. They don't have a payment now. Yes, they have
Yeah.
taxes, but it depends on the state. And so, in the long term, if you can get in, you can afford it, do it. It makes sense.
It just,
Unfortunately, we're trying to ride housing like the stock market.
yeah. And I think it's just the world that we're in, all this information that we have, everybody's trying to make the right decision. I think you have to make a decision based on the information you got today. And everybody's got, once again, you and I talk about these guys that say there's going to be a crash. Nobody can predict anything, but we just have to look at what we have today and what we're feeling today and what we're seeing today. I just see it being flat, moving along. And I wish, everybody's waiting for that one cataclysmic event to drop homes, 50%. There's just too much demand out there. And it's just
Yeah,
people have to be
yeah,
realistic and yeah, rents. I mean, it's as I said a couple weeks ago, the low hanging fruit on home buying is definitely gone. I mean, if you want to, it takes some work now to, he said you can't have your lease coming up in September and say, I'm going to start looking in end of July, August and buy a house and I'll be in September. I've talked to people that's taken, remember that Mandy, she looked for what, a year and a half.
yeah.
I mean, so it's not easy anymore. And I think it takes a lot of work, it takes the right agent to kind of hang in there. Um, and I said, if you find a house that it might not be perfect, I mean, like we talked about a couple, telecasts before, like Jackie was saying, people are looking for the perfect home. And with supply being so low, I mean, I know it's easier said than done, but you kind of have to kind of take some things off your, checklist to say, hey, okay, this house kind of fits what we're looking for. It's not perfect, but we can get into it. So it's not easy
And
right
if you haven't done so yet, and you're watching our podcast, use the link below and sign up for my newsletter. It comes out every Monday morning at 7 o'clock. And what I provide on it is I kind of give you an update on some of the Cromford data, some of the numbers on interest rates, and commentary from Mortgage News Daily. And then I offer my opinion in the bottom, what I think is
now.
going on. But it's a quick read, something to have with your morning cup of coffee. It does not put you on any kind of list where you're going to get email spam. You're just going to get the newsletter Monday morning at 7 o'clock. So do me a favor and sign up for that. Before you do that, though, be sure and punch the like button. Pat, I'm going to skedaddle. I'm going
Yeah.
out to watch the sprint boat races this weekend. Going to take my RV out there and park it amongst hundreds and hundreds of people. Probably run into a whole bunch of friends from years back. So I'm looking forward to it. So
We'll have fun. I'm gonna go walk outside on the pavement See what the
Well, bring an egg
114.
with you in a pan, fry an egg. Get the
The good thing about Arizona, it's gonna be 110 to 115 for about 30 to 45 days. We're almost, through August is just painful because you're waiting for football and it's just there's nothing going on in August. It is kind of miserable here in August.
yeah,
I
yeah.
hate
I hear
August.
that. Yeah.
So,
Well, don't hate today.
all right,
Everybody,
buddy.
thanks for watching, Pat. Thanks
No,
for
I
joining
won't.
me. Everybody have a great weekend. See ya.
Take care, everybody.